What's going on, everyone? It's Nina Infinity. Welcome back to my channel. I'm so sorry this video is a little late, but I wanted to make it because yes, I did watch the new King of the Hill on Hulu, and I've got a spoiler-free review for you. Before we dive into the details, here it is real quick. I loved it. Go watch it. End of review. Okay, not really, but seriously, go check it out, and when you watch it, come back and watch the video because I'm gonna go into spoilers and details. Once you watch it, come back and let's talk about it. Now, before we dive into everything, make sure, if you haven't done so already, to smash the like and also subscribe if you're new here. Okay, so let's get into it. Like I said, I loved the show, but I do have some minor critiques. I was super excited to get into this show because if you know me, you know that I just love King of the Hill. And as I've stated in my previous videos, I had hoped that Mike Judge and Greg Daniels were going to stay true to the original characters and the spirit of the old show. And I'm happy to report that they delivered. The show started with Hank and Peggy returning to Arlen after a long journey to Saudi Arabia, where Hank was the assistant manager of Arabian propane and Arabian accessories for Aramco. It starts with a hilarious joke about Hank's narrow urethra and Peggy's bragging about how she now speaks fluent Arabic, just like how she spoke fluent Spanish. And from there, it's like we the viewers are coming home with them, returning to Arlen after a long trip away and realizing that things are different, but also still the same. You meet a few new characters and find out what happened to some of the main characters, like how Bill locked himself in the house during COVID and never came out. When Hank saw him, Bill actually said that he had finished all of Netflix and that once you do that, they send someone to do a wellness check on you. I was laughing so hard. We also catch up with Boomhauer, who had a really sweet moment with Hank and who now has a girlfriend with a son, though we don't really learn too much about them this season. And of course, Dale, who apparently won an election during the pandemic for running on an anti-mask campaign, but was only in office for 36 hours and claimed to be an election denier. Classic Dale. I was worried about the voice of Dale after the passing of Johnny Hardwick and knew that Toby Huss had taken over for him. But for the first 6 episodes, Johnny's Dale, sounded a little different, so I thought it was Toby Huss at first. But I realized that Johnny Hardwick had done the voice for the first 6 episodes, and then Toby Huss took over for him starting in episode 7, and I thought he did a really fantastic job with the remaining episodes and kept the spirit of Dale alive. But as far as voice acting goes, I wasn't pleased with everyone. And this brings me to my main critique for the show this season. The voice of Con and Ted Wasanasan, who were originally voiced by Toby Huss. They were recast to reflect their Asian heritage, which I think is very dumb. The progressive notion that in animation, characters now have to fit their on-screen persona is so ridiculous and cringe. And in all honesty, I thought we were over with that kind of stuff by now. I've always considered voice acting to be very different from on-screen acting, in that because you don't see the real-life person, the entire job of the actor is to breathe life into the character without being bogged down by how everyone looks. But alas, Con and Ted's voice are now done by Kenneth Choi and Ronnie Chang, who I thought did an absolutely terrible job capturing the spirit of the characters. Entertainment Weekly ran an article praising this quote-unquote diversification, though it was always savvily written along cultural lines and already boasted a cast of characters from a diverse array of backgrounds. King of the Hill was criticized during its original run for casting several white actors to voice characters of color. I don't remember a single person complaining about the voices of the original characters because no one cared about that woke nonsense back then. But sure, Entertainment Weekly, we'll take your word for it.
Sure, Jan.
The reboot recasts several of these characters, with Kenneth Choi taking over for Huss as the voice of the Laotian American businessman Ted Wasanason, Ki Hong Lee replacing Arlen as his boastful son Chain, Ronnie Chang relieving Huss of the role of Khan Supanusampon, the Hill's Laotian American next-door neighbor and Native American actor Ty LeClaire taking over for the role of Bobby's friend Joseph Gribble from Breckenmeyer, who himself took over for Brittany Murphy in 2000. Again, this concept is so ridiculous to me because where does one draw a line? As most of you know, Bobby was and is still voiced by a woman, Pamela Adlon, but for some reason you're not seeing the adult Bobby recast as a 21-year-old white male, are you? And following that insane logic, everyone having to look like their cartoon counterpart, they probably should have recast Pamela Adlon. In an odd way, her recast would have probably made the most sense because Bobby is now an adult, and we all know how drastically voices, especially male voices, change after puberty. Funny enough, the original run of the show brought that up with regards to Joseph, who came back after a summer after hitting puberty, having a completely different crackling teenage voice. And so now his voice change for him makes sense. And the new voice actor did a great job with him. But somehow, Bobby's voice felt off, still having that 12-year-old voice. It was almost as if the creators were asking us to suspend our disbelief when it came to Bobby, but when it came to Ted and Khan, we had to be realistic. And let's just call it what it is. It's woke nonsense. Ironically, this show itself pokes fun at woke culture and explores the topic of cultural appropriation in episode 3, and they did a great job making fun of all of these really annoying woke ideas, which makes me think that the recastings were more of a studio demand than something Judge or Daniels wanted. But as much as those things hit a nerve with me, this show still captures the essence of the original King of the Hill. A great comedy and commentary about what's going on with culture in 2025, especially through Bobby's character, who is now living in Dallas with Joseph as his roommate and working as a creative robotage chef, mixing German and Japanese style cuisine, calling his style Japanerman, and running a restaurant funded by Ted Wasanason to keep his son Chain from becoming a DJ. Although Chain doesn't quite care about the restaurant at all. The idea of cooking with charcoal sent Hank through the roof, and they addressed all of that beautifully. We also meet up with Connie, who's now in college and exploring her sexuality. She's dating Chain, but in an open relationship, or what she calls ENM, which stands for ethical non-monogamy. And Bobby, like the rest of us, is really confused. Until another character, Willow, explains ENM being a concept college girls made up to get side which was hilarious. We're gonna talk about Willow a lot more in just a sec. But of course, Connie quickly realizes that she has feelings for Bobby and he for her. I have to say that I actually had tears in my eyes in episode 4 when they did the karaoke and then they had the flashbacks of them dancing as kids at school. It got me in the feels. Speaking of new characters, there is Brian Robertson, who moved into the Hill House while Hank and Peggy were in Saudi Arabia, and Willow, who was briefly Bobby's girlfriend and was introduced in episode 6. I like Brian's character, and I think they'll have a lot of room to explore with the character in the future, but the moment I saw Willow, I was like, oh no, run, Bobby, run! She did have all the hallmarks of being a weirdo. Red flags after red flags. The shaved head, the nose ring, the crystal around her neck, the fact that she was a vegan, and he literally met her while she was going through his garbage. But Bobby didn't run. He ended up dating her for a couple of episodes, mainly to try to get over Connie and realizing that she was just not ready for a serious relationship. Connie later sends Bobby a basket of cookies with a message that said, "You're not ENM material because you're husband material," which is so sweet, but also so funny. Because the cookies were left at the wrong apartment and the guy who receives it has to explain to his girlfriend who Connie is. I was dying. In episode 7, Hank and Bobby go to Cowboys fantasy camp and Willow decides to tag along. And then they show how she's just amazing at football, shocking both Hank and Bobby. And Hank even asks, how did a vegan learn to do that? Did you guys like my Hank impression? I had the same question as Hank, and even though the show tries to explain that her dad used to work for the Cowboys, so she grew up around football and that's why she's so good, it still made no sense how she could do everything she did on a vegan diet, because when you're vegan, you're extremely weak and have very low energy, which was the opposite of Willow. She also reveals that she has a beef with Jerry Jones, who fired her dad, and that's why she doesn't like to talk about it. Later, that beef escalates really quickly.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
When Willow gets caught taking a dump on Jerry Jones's desk, and thankfully causes Bobby to realize he has to break up with her. And he loves Connie. To which Hank wisely advises him, in light of recent events, do it very carefully. Which was, oh my god, so funny. There are so many more great moments in this season, and I laughed a lot. Some of the other things to note before I wrap this up, because I could talk about the show all day, but I loved episode 5 and how Hank loves soccer after spending so much time in Saudi Arabia. And the show hinted at how Nancy and John Redcord might be back together, but I couldn't quite tell if they were. Con and Min are now divorced, which is interesting, and I loved how we even got a glimpse of Junichiro in episode 9, though I would have loved it if he actually came to town to go to Bobby's restaurant. I also thought it was hilarious that they made fun of the Manosphere and Andrew Tate. I really did miss Strickland Propane and was hoping that Hank would stop by there to refill a tank or something, and even though that didn't happen, I was really glad to see Buck Strickland up to his old shenanigans. And I love that Bobby and Connie started dating again by the end of the season, realizing that they had to get to really know each other all over again, the adult versions of themselves. My only other complaint was that Luann and Lucky were not mentioned at all. I would have loved for them to at least acknowledge that maybe they moved away or something, but the fact that they didn't say anything was kind of sad. We also had another noticeable character missing, which was Lady Bird, and I would have loved to see an episode about the Hills getting a new dog. But hopefully all of that and more will be explored in season 15, which has already been renewed. I can't wait. Overall, I really enjoyed season 14. It felt like King of the Hill through and through, full of Easter eggs for longtime fans like me, while also saying something new about today's world. So I highly recommend you guys watch it. And that's it for my King of the Hill season 14 review. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure you smash the like, share the video, and subscribe if you're new here, and leave a comment. Let me know what you guys all thought about the show, about the season. What did you like? What didn't you like? Do you agree with me about the voice castings? What was your favorite moment? What was your favorite episode? Do you have theories about season 15? Let me know all of your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!